I declare the Plano City Council is convened in open session, that all members are present with the exception of Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Holmer. The council will now recess into executive session in Training Room A to hold a closed executive meeting pursuant to the provisions of Vernon's Texas Code's Annotated Government Code, Chapter 551, the Open Meetings Act, in accordance with the authority contained in Section 551-071 to consult with the attorney, receive legal advice, and Section 551-072 to discuss real estate matters. Thanks. now declare the Plano City Council preliminary open meeting is reconvened in open session. That all council members are present with the exception of Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Holmer and Councilmember Prince, who should be here shortly. Our first item on the preliminary agenda is consideration action resulting in executive session. Our next item is consent and regular agendas. Is there any item a council member would like to remove? Next item is discussion and action on future agendas. All right. I knew this was going to be a good night. We'll take a recess in 3 minutes. We'll start up again. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
I now declare that the Plano City Council is reconvened in open session, that all members are present with the exception of Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Holmer. We'll begin tonight's regular meeting with the invocation led by Pastor Kevin Foley, North Dallas Community Bible Fellowship, and the Pledge of Allegiance and Texas Pledge led by Beam Academy. Would you please stand for those who are able?
Let's go before the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, we just adore you tonight. We give you glory. We exalt your name. And Lord God, we're just praying for your divine blessing over this meeting. I pray for a blessing for everyone attending as well as the families that are represented. And Lord God, we just pray for your divine wisdom tonight, dear God, as we discuss the plans for this incredible city, dear God. We're just praying that you minister to the needs of your people. Lord God, ultimately, we just pray that you get the glory out of every word, every thought, and every action of tonight. We love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
you one of my key rings. Do you guys, just, if you want a blue one, tell me, I'll get some more blue. Oh, look at that, there they go.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, do you want a blue one? I thought so. Did you get yours?
No.
What color?
Good.
Oh, good, I'm so glad. All right, here we go, let's take a picture.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys for doing this. Okay, y'all, can you see everybody? Oh, right here. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much. Tonight, we have prepared a proclamation in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and will recognize the national holiday on Monday, January 20th. I'd like to invite June Jenkins and the NAACP board members and friends to come up as I read this, and then I'll let you say a few words, June. Come on up. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, was ordained Baptist minister and awarded a Nobel Peace Prize for his nonviolent activism in the civil rights movement during the 1950s and 60s. That inspired a generation to effect change with the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964 and the Voting Rights Act in 1965. Whereas Plano seeks to embody the ideals of Dr. King's dream with understanding over heartlessness, unification over division, and fellowship over hostility. As a result, people of all ages, religions, and races have been impacted in a positive way as we work to uphold our core values. And whereas Dr. King taught us to heal the hurts, right the wrongs, and change society by meeting anger with compassion to others, while seeking to end bigotry, segregation, and discrimination, and be true to the American dream he loved and renewed. Whereas we celebrate this special holiday and recognize our responsibility to pass Dr. King's legacy from one generation to the next to unite and improve the future we all share. I, John Munns, Mayor of the City of Plano, do hereby proclaim Monday, January 20th, 2025, is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the City of Plano, and I do thereby encourage all citizens to join the Plano City Council and me to recommit to Dr. King's dream in acts of service to others, to our community, and our nation. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor Munns, and on behalf of the Collin County NAACP, I'm June Jenkins, President, and I have our first Vice President, Sharisa Thomas, and other members of our board here today. We are honored that you have recognized Dr. King and the wonderful work that he did, the impact that he made on our country, and the vision that he set for us all continue to propel as we move forward. I will just say that we're excited to also announce, weather permitting, next Monday we will host a parade, an MLK parade, through the Douglas community in Plano here at 10 o'clock a.m. And we invite you all to join us. Again, continue to check social media because it's weather permitting, not looking too good, 31 degrees that day right now. And then we have Chief Ed Drain, who will be in the parade as the Grand Marshal along with Mayor Munns and some other members of the council. And I'll just leave you with this, with one of King's messages that I will ask you and the council to continue to use as a guiding force in remembrance of Dr. King. And that is, the time is always right to do right. So we impart upon you as the NAACP to continue to use that as a guiding principle as you govern the city of Plano. Thank you very much.
Thank you, June. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you. Appreciate it. Moving on to the consent agenda.
The consent agenda.
Yeah.
The consent agenda will be acted upon in one motion and contains items which are routine and typically non-controversial. Items may be removed from this agenda for individual discussion by a council member, the city manager, or any citizen. The presiding officer will establish time limits based upon the number of speaker requests.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion, a second to approve the consent agenda. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Next item.
Items for individual consideration. Public hearing items. Applicants are limited to 15 minutes presentation time with a 5-minute rebuttal if needed. Remaining speakers are limited to 30 total minutes of testimony time with 3 minutes assigned per speaker. The presiding officer amends these times as deemed necessary. Non-public hearing items. The presiding officer will permit public comments for items on the agenda not posted for a public hearing. The presiding officer will establish time limits based upon the number of speaker requests, length of the agenda, and to ensure meeting efficiency, and may include a cumulative time limit. Speakers will be called in the order the requests are received until the cumulative time is exhausted. Item number 1. Public hearing and consideration of an ordinance as requested in zoning case 2024-25 to amend the text of Article 9 residential districts, Article 10 non-residential districts, Article 11 overlay districts, Article 14 allowed uses and use classifications, Article 15 use-specific regulations, Article 16 parking and loading, Article 17 landscaping and tree preservation of the comprehensive zoning ordinance of the city, ordinance number 2015-5-2 as heretofore amended, to add a new expressway corridor overlay district, which will apply the same boundary delineations from the expressway corridor environmental health map in the comprehensive plan, to describe new boundary delineations for the expressway corridor overlay district on the zoning map, and providing a penalty clause, a repealer clause, a savings clause, a severability clause, a publication clause, and an effective date.
Thank you. I'm Christina Day, Director of Planning, here to discuss zoning case 25 with you this evening. This is a request to update the zoning ordinance requirements for development in our expressway corridors. It has an associated component in the next agenda item 2, which is a comprehensive plan update. So the history to this item is important, perhaps more than many zoning cases, because Plano has a longstanding policy for regulating residential uses in expressway corridors. And that intent goes back 20 years to preserve land for economic development and maintain quality of life for residents. The initial policy included a 1,200-foot setback along 121 that was expanded to other corridors over time. There were other communities along the 121 corridor that adopted similar policies. One of the challenges with that policy was that it had essentially waiver language that stated factors including topography, creeks, vegetation, and existing development patterns should be considered in applying the setback. So over time, there were just questions. It was good to have that mitigation opportunity, but at the same time, how to apply it was really the question we kept running into. So we sought a rational way to apply this. The city conducted a corridor study that was scientifically based in order to help apply where to mitigate and where not. That was adopted in 2019, and that included kind of two pieces, some amendments to the comprehensive plan as well as mitigation in the zoning ordinance. So the EHA analysis was required from that point on when any kind of sensitive land use would be proposed along an expressway corridor. We would conduct a study, and really that was the development community that was providing these studies to provide additional information on how to mitigate. With that, there were mitigation suggestions in the comprehensive plan, and those are kind of outlined. There's a graphic that is shown in the plan, and so there were several different options that were provided. Some of these are also included in the zoning ordinance, things like setting the use back, placing open space away from the highway, or placing air intakes away from the expressway. So what we've learned over time, we've had 10 of these studies come in, we've reviewed them, and what we really found was there were a lot of standard mitigation strategies that were presented to us. So it presented an opportunity for us to eliminate that study requirement, the time and expense associated with that, and adopt some standard mitigation. So we've proposed this update to reemphasize the economic development goals of the city. It will simplify the process, standardize the mitigation, and improve equity of outcomes. There's another couple of benefits here that include the idea that waivers are allowed where warranted. That's language in the ordinance. It also will help us avoid planned development districts to enforce the standards which are required today. So this will enact the zoning overlay district. The EHA 1 and 2 that are in the comp plan today and impact the zoning ordinance will be transferred to conditional and restricted zones. There are no changes to the boundaries proposed at this time. This is the map as it exists today and would be implemented into the zoning ordinance in the same fashion. It does impact a number of uses, primarily residential development is all that's impacted by this zoning amendment. It will also prohibit residential uses in the restricted area, which is the most immediate area along the expressway corridor. Another element to this is we've heard a lot of feedback about parking garages and how they affect the aesthetic of the community as you're driving down expressway corridors. So this would implement standard parking garage design elements for these high visibility corridors to help improve those outcomes. So the environmental health map as it exists in the comp plan is being proposed to be removed. That's in the next agenda item, but just so you know, this does have a secondary impact in the comprehensive plan. This item was recommended for approval 8-0 by the Planning and Zoning Commission, subject to the comp plan amendment, and no public responses have been received on this item. That concludes my report, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Councilman Horn?
Yes, thank you, Christina, for the great presentation. Just for clarification here, none of the EHA boundaries have changed. We still have the EHA 1, EHA 2. They're going to be modified to be now called conditional expressway or conditional expressway corridor area, which was the former EH1, and then we'll have restricted expressway corridor area, which was the EH2.
Correct.
So under that, under the conditional, we still can have residential as long as the developer has the mitigation factors to protect the residents. That's both noise and particulate, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and under the restricted, no residential whatsoever.
Correct.
Okay, and those boundaries have not changed, and all we're doing is simplifying the language and making it easier for both the citizen, the Planning and Zoning Commission, the council, and developers to work with this.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
I'll open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
There are no speakers on this item.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing, confine the comments to the council. Councilman Prince?
Motion to approve.
Sorry, okay.
A second.
I have Councilman Smith?
Oh, I was just going
Oh,
to second.
God, you guys are really fast. I have a motion and a second to approve item number 1. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Next item.
Item number 2, public hearing and consideration of an ordinance as requested in Comprehensive Plan Amendment 2024-1 to amend the comprehensive plan originally adopted by ordinance number 2021-11-1, incorporating amendments to the economic environment pillar, regionalism pillar, and other comprehensive plan actions, and removing the expressway corridor environmental health map and guidelines of the comprehensive plan and providing an effective date.
All right, item 2 is our annual request to update the comprehensive plan. So we've got a nifty graphic here to show you kind of where we are and what we're doing. We have adopted a 10-year cycle of updates to the comprehensive plan that'll just sort of keep us on track, keep stuff fresh, and make sure that we're staffed appropriately to maintain our planning efforts. So in 2024, we were scheduled to look at the economic environment, regionalism, and maps. That was impacted by the prior item, and so that's why this is coming to you in January of 25. So here's the timeline. We did bring this to P&Z, and on May 20th, they called a public hearing. In June, they discussed economic environment. July, regionalism. Then we had a little delay while we were working out the environmental health zoning amendments, and both of those went to P&Z in December with a public hearing, and here we are at council for the hearing at the end of the process. So there are currently 2 types of updates allowed under our comprehensive plans ordinance. We have the ability to do some administrative updates, and that's things like updating facts, figures, the population number, things like this, so it just stays fresh. Secondly, we have updates that require a plan amendment, and those are before you this evening. We've also taken the opportunity where needed to update the facts and figures. So you'll see some of both in your packet. So here's a detailed list of what we've performed maintenance on. Again, economics, regionalism, expressway corridor, as well as a few other items that I will detail later. These are based either on the end-of-year status action updates that are given to us as feedback by departments that are lead over these items, or also you may recollect that we have been retiring some of the older plans and documents, just kind of housekeeping. When the Plano at Maturity report from 2003 was removed from public policy, there was guidance to retain some actions, and so those are being incorporated into this document at this time. So this is a graph telling you kind of which areas are updated, where there's no change, and where there are new actions related to adopting the Plano at Maturity actions. These are detailed in writing in the packet. The city has undergone some shifts in policy related to economic development. Those don't necessarily impact the core values of the comprehensive plan, but they do impact the way we conduct business. So you'll see that reflected in these updates, and it does just continue to ensure that Plano maintains a competitive position in the market. Regional pillars, these updates gave us the opportunity to do some things like reflect the new water plan that's been adopted. So we've been strongly supported on this regionalism pillar by the Environmental Health and Sustainability Department, the Engineering Department, as well as from Parks and Rec and Public Works, provided feedback. So those are changes to reflect consistency across the city's documents. We've talked already in the prior item about the Expressway Corridor Environmental Health Map. This is recommended to be removed, and these associated guidelines are removed from the comprehensive plan. You can see there's proposed updates to the associated items with this. Sometimes they're kept for record keeping, and because the philosophy has not changed, it's only the vehicle which has changed. Then finally, you'll see information about the other comprehensive plan updates. Again, actions that were obsolete, completed, things like that where it just needed updates. Those are recognized, as well as the implementation of the actions from the Plano Tomorrow report. See, there are 5 new actions that came out of Plano Tomorrow, and Plano at Maturity, excuse me, and the revised action in Jobs and Workforce Development. So with that, the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend unanimous approval of this item. No public responses have been received, and I'm available for questions.
Okay, any questions for staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll open the public hearing. Any speakers?
There are no speakers
All
on
right.
this item.
Close the public hearing, confine the comments to the council. Councilman Prince.
Motion to approve.
Fine, I'll second it.
Okay. That was nice of you. I have a motion and a second to approve item number 2. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Next item.
Public hearing and consideration of a resolution to approve the use and taking of a portion of City of Plano public parkland known as Chisholm Trail at Parker Road pursuant to Chapter 26 of the Texas Parks and Wildlife Code to approve using a portion of dedicated parkland as an electrical easement and right-of-way for the purpose of installing electrical equipment on existing overhead structures, authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute all necessary documents, and providing an effective date.
Good evening, council. I'm Ron Smith. I'm your Parks and Recreation Director. This is, in fact, the public hearing for a Chapter 26, which is required by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Code. Anytime public property, public parkland is used for something other than parkland, this is for electrical service delivery, an Encore project. It's on 0.192 acre of parkland, Chisholm Trail just north of Parker. During tonight's public hearing, we need to find 2 things. Number 1, we need to find that no feasible and prudent alternative to the taking would be appropriate. And number 2, that all reasonable planning to minimize harm has taken place. Now, we listened to Encore. They presented to the Parks and Recreation Planning Board on November 12th of 2024. The board voted to recommend approval of the taking for this purpose. We do have a nifty presentation that will be presented by Encore. Mr. Chris Blewett is here tonight, and staff will be here to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for opening up the presentation. Encore is going to be doing some updating on all of their feeders and switches. And one of the places that we have to upgrade is by upgrading one of the switches here, right here on Chisholm Trail. And what it is that we're upgrading our switches to be automated to where they can talk to each other between feeders. And what that does is that it improves the reliability and the resiliency of power for the impacted community. And what will happen is if, for instance, if one of the switches or power goes out, Encore has to manually send somebody out there to flip the switch. And what this automated interrupter switch does is that it speaks to the feeders, and then it reduces the outage time by automatically switching itself on. And so what will happen is right there, as you see on the screen, the switching location is right there between two feeders. It's right next to the road. And the only thing that will be happening is that we will be replacing that pole with a 60-foot pole. It's a Class 3 pole, and that's where the automated switching equipment will be installed. And you can see it here on the bottom right side of the screen. And the reason we are having to get an easement with the city on park grounds, one, the existing utilities there was installed years ago, and there was no easement that could be found. And so we're requesting to get an easement to cover the existing, what's already there, and to give us rights to put up the interrupter. And the interrupter requires a 10-foot cross arm, and what you see currently there is a 8-foot cross arm. And so if we're going to be able to upgrade our equipment, then we have to get an easement with you guys. And so the easement is a really small take. It's only 0.192 acres of land that we're taking. That's roughly a 30-foot easement going east to west. I'm sorry, north and south, and for the right there across the property. And so here, there will be minimum impact to the parkland. We will only be replacing one pole. No additional poles will be placed in the park property. All of the staging will be done in the street, and traffic control plans and that detailed information will be submitted by our permit team when they apply for the city permit to get the approval to do the work. And so the relocation of the infrastructure out of the parks property here, moving the switch location, and this kind of explains why we have to upgrade at this switching location. If we couldn't do it here, then moving that switching location would involve building new infrastructure and rebuilding and relocating some of the overhead there, which could result in a large amount of power distribution outages during construction. And so by putting the switching location here, this will have the most minimum impact to the area that we're trying to upgrade. And so the reasonable planning to minimize harm. The existing power lines cross above the trail and trees with no impact to either. And this work will not significantly change the existing alignment. Everything will stay in the current alignment that it is now. There's no trees there in that location, so no trees will be impacted during construction. All excavation and work and construction, any grounds that will be disturbed during construction will be restored back to its original condition after the construction has been completed. And again, the trucks and equipment will be staged in the road with traffic control plans there to avoid any additional and unnecessary ground disturbance. And here the estimated cost of construction that is going to cost Encore to do this project would be roughly about $80,000. And with your approval, Encore plans to get started with construction in February and be done by March. I don't have an exact date of when construction will start, but once it starts, it will take a minimum about 1 to 2 days to be completed. And so at the conclusion, we have presented that there was no feasible or prudent alternative to place the interrupter in a different location, because if we have to, then that will cause for the project and construction to be very long, and that will cause power outages and disrupt the power for customers. And the reasonable planning to minimize harm is that the easement avoids impacts to the trail. It avoid impacting any trees, which there's no trees there. The property will be restored back to its original condition, as we're just replacing one pole with a taller pole, and all of the facilities that's already there will maintain its current footprint. And that concludes the presentation. I'm happy and available to take any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll open the public hearing.
There are no speakers on this item.
We'll close the public hearing. Confine the comments to the council. Councilman Riccinelli.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve.
Thank you. Thank you. Rick. I've got a motion and a second to approve item number 3. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Next item.
Item number 4, final public hearing on the proposed general obligation bond referendum scheduled for May 3rd, 2025.
Good evening, Karen Rhodes Whitley. This is the final public hearing. We did have one November 25th. We had one also on December 9th. And then, of course, this is the final one. After this public hearing, I have a presentation regarding the projects you will be discussing. We need to go ahead and firm up the actual projects you want on the referendum by January 27th, and then y'all are scheduled to vote on it February 10th. The total for the bond referendum right now, just the proposed totals, $700.7 million.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing. I think we do have speakers.
We do have speakers on this item. The first one is Diane Goebel.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City Executives. I'm Diane Goebel, Chair of the Cultural Arts Commission, and I am here to express publicly the points that the Commission conveyed in our response to the City Manager related to the proposed bond projects. The Commission fully supports the necessity of maintaining and improving the city's infrastructure with proposed bond projects for public safety, streets, and municipal facilities. However, we are concerned that the current bond proposal does not address the pressing needs of Plano's arts community. As champions of cultural arts, we see the lack of dedicated facilities for performing and visual arts as a significant gap in this plan. Arts organizations are increasingly challenged to present events in the city due to the absence of appropriate venues. So a dedicated facility is critical for positioning Plano as a premier arts destination. The Cultural Arts Commission Commission's grant requires applicants to produce 2/3 of their programming with the city, as you all know. However, the lack of suitable venues often forces those organizations to seek space elsewhere. So this creates a barrier to them to meet the grant requirements and limits their ability to showcase their work locally. We suggest that the city explore repurposing some of the existing buildings that are being vacated as a cost-effective solution to address immediate needs. Also, unlike other city services such as parks and rec and libraries, there is no centralized department to represent the arts and to ensure that arts-related projects receive due consideration in future planning and bond discussions. So therefore, we recommend the creation of an arts department. Waiting another 4 years to include an arts venue in a bond package will significantly hinder our collective goal of creating a vibrant cultural arts hub. So immediate action is needed to identify solutions and funding sources to ensure the city's arts vision is realized. I thank you for considering the perspective of the Cultural Arts Commission, and we look forward to engaging further to ensure that the arts receive the investment it deserves as a vital part of Plano's growth and appeal. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jean Dillard.
Thank you very much. I have my Vanna here who's going to hold my mic, so I think she'll do a good job. My name is Gene Dillard, and I'm back. I was here a couple of sessions ago. The last time I was here, I was representing my studio gallery, and we were talking about the needs for visual arts in our community. This evening, I'm coming as president of Coalition of Arts, the Collaborative Arts of Plano organization. CAP membership includes more than 25 arts and culture organizations in Plano, both large and small. Our mission is to establish Plano as a diverse cultural destination through collaboration, promotion, and advocacy. A number of members are here tonight, and we're here to continue to encourage youth through the bond package to see development of additional arts facilities. Diane has mentioned a number of needs. The needs are very obvious, and I think many of you agree with those. But we'd like to have some seed development in an amount that you see fit. We know advancing the art requires the whole community, businesses, the arts organizations, as well as city government. But it's a long time until the next bond program, and the needs are not going to go away. They're not going to wait. Needs for more and better performance venues, rehearsal space, galleries, studios, instructional workshop spaces. And much of the near-term need can be met by seizing on opportunities at hand, like adapting for reuse existing vacant or underused buildings. Larger space needs will obviously require additional long-term planning, but there are opportunities that we could deal with in the very, very near term. We're very thankful for the city for supporting the arts. We believe, as you do, the arts contribute to the quality of life of those who live and visit our community. They contribute to the city's economy, and they enhance our reputation as a place to live, work, and play. We're thankful for our existing city art venues, Courtyard Theater, Cox Playhouse, McCall Plaza, Red Tail Pavilion. And we're very grateful for the generous Cultural Arts Grants program. We very much appreciate what the city is doing to develop its first cultural arts plan, and our hopes are that this will define a path for all of us going forward. And by the way, we'd like to invite all of you to our State of the Arts presentation on February 13th, preceding the rollout of the arts plan. So please give thought to how we can partner with you to expand Plano's art facilities so that we can realize the full potential for the arts in Plano. We appreciate your support.
Thank you, Gene.
The next speaker is Steve Levine.
I added 30 seconds. That was me. I just wanted to test out the controls. I saw you. It was fun to watch. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Honorable Mayor, council members and city staff. My name is Steve Levine, a 40-year resident of Plano on Jacqueline Drive. And I am here today on behalf of the nonpartisan organization Keep Plano #1. And like Gene, I stood before you at the last bond hearing. At that time, I stood here as a Bond Advisory Commission member and a Cultural Arts Plan Advisory Committee member to address the need for an arts-related effort as part of the bond referendum. I outlined for you a specific need for visual arts facilities and specific downtown solution, Studio 15, as an example of what could be done using adaptive reuse of existing buildings with as little as $5 to $10 million in seed capital, which I realize is not a small amount of money. I believe most of you agree there is a need for more arts investment in Plano. We all know that there are other ways to fund building acquisition, including rolling this into a Parks, Land, and Building Acquisition Fund, use of tax incentives or hotel tax monies. Some combination of these may be needed to accomplish the arts goals for the downtown area of the city. However, bond money is a way to get there, and approving building acquisition and development seed money would not only enable moving planning forward on building an arts facility upon adoption of the Cultural Arts Plan later this year, it might also entice the arts community represented here today and arts supporters to help and come out and support the overall bond referendum. This could bring out significant positive press and promotion for the bonds and a unique group to help us out to get them passed. Therefore, I and our membership at Keep Plano #1 encourage you to include authority in the bond program for the adaptive reuse of older vacant and underutilized buildings for a variety of purposes in support of the arts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more speakers?
There are no other speakers.
I'll close the public hearing. Item 5.
Item 5, discussion and direction regarding the 2025 bond referendum projects.
Good evening. I'm going to go over a presentation. At the start of my presentation, just want to mention, what happened to my presentation? Along the way,
Karen, you have a very strong voice, but you do have to talk into the microphone.
Okay.
Okay.
2 seconds, let me get to the very front. Okay, along the way, the city council has asked us to come up with some information before we even started discussing the different projects. So I'm going to go through that, and then we can get into the discussion of the projects. Right now, the preliminary bond referendum, as I mentioned earlier, is $700.7 million. Street improvements totals $342.3 million. Public safety facilities totals $243.6 million. Parks and recreation facilities totals $60.7. Fleet operation facility projects total $45.1. Library facilities totals 4.9 or $5 million, and city maintenance facility projects total 3.9. Many have asked about the debt that we are currently carrying here at the City of Plano. This is a graph showing the debt per capita as of September 23. We received this information once the cities have finalized their audits, okay? So that's why it's stated in 23. As you will see, Plano is in the middle of the pack at 2,086. The city with the most per capita is Frisco, followed by Richardson, Irving, Arlington, and Dallas, and then we go on down. Now, the next slide shows you this is the current debt by assessed valuation. So, in 24 and 25, so right now for fiscal year 24, we have $745 million in outstanding debt. The 25 number that goes up to 809, we do have scheduled to issue $85 million more in May of 25. The majority of that, though, is going for street projects, and after that, we will be completely out of street authority. We will have a little left for Parks and Rec, but everything else will have been issued from the 21 bond referendum. You will see this top line will show you back in 2007, we were about 1.7%. We now are down to 1.3% per assessed valuation. This is a look of the bond referendums that we've done for the past 20 years. We've had very good success with bond elections when we've gone out to the citizenry. We've only had 2 propositions that did not pass. That was a performing arts center back in 2001 and the movement of the Collinwood House. Also, whenever we do this in our publications also, in the actual bond election ordinance, we have to put a tax rate impact within all the projects. So it does have to be, we're going to need to decide which tax rate impact we're going to be putting. So I'll show you those here in a minute. Okay. Normally when we do these bond referendums, we always say we're going to authorize for 4 years and then we hold another bond referendum. We hardly ever able to get all the projects done within the 4-year time period. Usually we go into a fist. So I'm going to show you 2 different tax rate impacts. One's going over the 4 years, one's going over the 5. Councilmember Riccadelli had asked at one of the meetings for us to come up with the dollar amount. Hey, if we don't do anything and we want to go out to the voters and say no tax rate impact, your dollar amount that we could issue is $183 million. Also, what was asked, if we didn't issue any debt over the next 4 years, what would happen to the tax rate? The tax rate changed because we'd be paying off the principal and interest of all the debt that we already have, would go down 2.77 cents. Now, at the bottom of this, right now, it's $700.7 million. So if we were to issue that over the next 4 years, this is just a preliminary number. As you saw on the last chart, we've only gone up one time when we've gone out for a bond election, and that was back during the Great Economic Recession. But we are going to have to notify the public that we most likely will have a tax rate change. So if we authorize the 700.7, we do it over 4 years. Now this is on the average home, which is $579,000. For 700, the tax rate change impact, potential tax rate change impact is 4.85 cents, or $224 at the end of that 4 years. If you go down to 650 million, it's 4.18 or $193. And if y'all decide to go down to 600, it's $173. So this is at the end of 4 years. Now, y'all also asked to provide you with this per year. I know this is a very, very busy chart, but this shows you what would happen in 26, 27, 28, 29 to the end of the 4 years. Okay, this is the 5-year scenario. As far as issuing debt, I know we like to authorize for the next 4 years, but usually it takes us around 5 years. I just mentioned we are going to be going out and issuing the last of the streets. We have a little bit of Parks and Rec left for next year. Usually, though, the projects, all kinds of things can happen. So if we were to go out with a 5-year tax rate impact, you'd be able to go to $301 million at no tax rate impact. If you sold no bonds during the 5-year period, the tax rate change is a negative 3.5 or $162. Then I have the other 3 alternatives. You got the 700, which is highlighted, 3.67 cent tax rate change for $169 at the very end of the 5 years. 650 would be 2.87 cents, $132 at the very end, and then 600 million would be 2.47 cents, 114.58 cents. Another way to look at this is what y'all requested, what it would be per year. So each of these is listed out per year and what would happen at the end of 5. Now, this is just a projection. Hopefully, we will end up with more on new growth that can hit the assessed property value, or sales tax could come in higher. This is just a point in time on what we're projecting based on the debt that we have and issuing new bonds over the next 5 years. Councilmember Williams, you had asked if we could provide some kind of tax rate impact on multifamily and commercial. We have been in discussions with the Central Appraisal District for the last 2 weeks about this. There's technically no way their system can come up with a good enough number to give us that would be valid. Now, here's the point. On the tax roll, multifamily, okay? We have XY multifamilies. Some of those, the way it's written is like, I don't even know the apartment names, but you have an apartment name, it's one whole apartment. They don't do it by unit. So you would have a multifamily that might only have 4 units versus a multifamily that has 300, 400 units. Commercial's the same way is what they're telling me. You got mom and pop operations going versus Toyota, Liberty Mutual, and it's just their feeling. And with our discussions, unless we give them more details on something more specific, they're not able to run us a report. And I do not have that information, so. Okay, along with the debt and those tax rate impacts already included in there, we do have O&M. For instance, the fire station number 14, you're going to have to hire the firefighters to go into fire station number 14. On this slide, this shows you that the current estimated total cost for O&M is $6.9 million after the 4 years. Of course, the biggest one's going to be your public safety facilities, $5.4 million. Parks and Rec facilities will need $1.2. The service center will need $338. That's annual costs. We do have some one-time costs of $3 million that's broken out there. The O&M tax rate side of this, which is already included in those other charts I showed you, is 1.14 for a 4-year and 1.03 for a 5-year. Okay, this year, as the last time, you did the bond referendum citizen advisory committee. It was absolutely wonderful. They went on site visits. They gave us all kinds of input in your packet tonight. They did matrices where they ranked the individual projects. You have one that shows you for all the projects, and then you have one by parks projects, public safety projects, facility projects, and parks and rec, and then street projects. So these are their rankings. You will see they did high, medium, and low. Some of them, they even said do not include, but this is their rankings that they are providing that you can utilize when you're looking at the different projects. Also, in addition, all the boards and commissions were sent out the project lists. We went and presented to many of them. The Planning and Zoning Commission found all the projects to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, policies and actions for facilities and infrastructure. The Parks and Recreation Planning Board had no opposition or changes, and the Cultural Arts Commission, as Diane mentioned here a minute ago, wanted to express the importance of the need for dedicated funding for a performing and visual arts to increase appropriate venue opportunities. I have included all their memos and matrices in your packets. The timeline right now, submission of the boards and commissions, including the Bond Referendum Citizen Advisory Commission recommendations, the third public hearing, which we just had, and then we need to start discussion regarding the propositions that will be submitted to the voters. City Council will agree on the propositions at our next City Council meeting, and then February 10th, the City Council will consider the ordinance to call the bond referendum. February, early March, voter education material will be developed and distributed. Early March, voter education materials presented to Plano citizens. Mid-March through April, we will start our presentations to community and civic groups. In fact, I think we're already starting them in February. Mid-April, election notices are published, and an educational video will begin to air. April 17th, we have a virtual town hall devoted to the 2025 bond referendum. Early voting is April 21st through the 29th, and Election Day is May 3rd. Now, what we have provided in this packet is we've gone in, this is normally what we do, it's no longer Proposition 1, Proposition 2, 3, da-da-da-da. Now you do A, B, C, D, E, F. Here, this is just a draft. Y'all are to place an order after you figure out all the different projects. This is by dollar amount on the projects. So, and say for streets, at the end of the day, this is what that ballot's going to read. The issuance of 342, whatever dollar amount y'all decide, general obligation bonds for street improvements, and the imposition of tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on the bonds. On this, we have lumped public safety together. The next one down is Parks and Recreation. Once again, this is not in any kind of priority level. This is just by dollar amount. On the second page, you will see $45 million for the fleet operation facility. The next one is for library facilities at nearly $5 million. And the last one is $3.9 million for the city maintenance facilities. Now, going back in other bond referendums, what we did was we put the municipal facilities, we had public safety facilities, of course, but then the other facilities that had to do with normal municipal facilities, we would lump them in one proposition. We are no longer able to do that. So what we had to do, this is according to the Attorney General, our bond counsel's already talked to them. They've already reviewed this. This is the format unless y'all decide, hey, I'm gonna take out, like the last time, I think y'all decided you wanted the Tom Muhlenbeck Center to be its own proposition, which is fine, but we can't just lump facilities together anymore. They have to have a direct relationship to what it is on here. So we had to include the city maintenance facility separate, and the park maintenance facility is now included within the parks and recreation facilities because it's tied to parks. Okay, I just wanted to give y'all a heads up on that. And once again, this is the listing. In your packet, you have a listing of all the individual projects, and you have the matrices that the BRCAC has provided as far as their recommendations. What questions do I have, or y'all have before?
Before we get started, I was going to just go down the line. I was going to start with you, Rick, just to hear your thoughts on moving forward. But if you have a technical question for Karen, that's probably anybody that's interested in that. Let me start with you, Anthony.
Thank you, Mayor.
Maria,
So I think in keeping with what you were saying, I'm going to save my kind of comments, but
Yeah.
just ask questions on.
If you have a technical question,
Yes,
go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that great and thorough presentation, Karen, and I really appreciate you including the extra information that I requested. Could you remind me, are these 20 or 30-year bonds when they're issued?
20-year bonds.
Okay, 20-year
Yes.
bonds, and also, would we anticipate that on the normal 4-year schedule, there would be another bond referendum in 2029?
Yes, most likely. Usually we run out, we don't utilize all of them, but it's just like streets. We went through streets very, very quickly. We don't have that much left for streets, and they will be issued in the next couple of months.
So even if we were to say, use the 5-year tax impact number, we still probably would be going to the citizens
That's
for more bonds in
yes.
4 years?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And then, I really appreciate the very busy and complicated worksheet in the presentation that included the information not just for that year 4, but for the years leading up to that.
Yes.
I was wondering, since the taxpayers of Plano will be paying on these bonds for 20 years, is it possible to run those numbers out, for 20 years and say, okay, this is the total cost? Because when the residents, put that checkbox next to the item and say, yes, we want to vote for this, they're not just signing up for that 4 or 5-year tax impact, right? They're signing up for a 20-year impact,
Well,
I believe.
the thing is, after we issue, we have to pay that debt. So after we issue the 4th or 5th year, if we needed any kind of tax increase, it would go in at that year. It's not going to go in 20 years from now. I
Well,
can let you know what
sure.
the 20-year cost is, though.
Well, and
if
thank you.
that's
And,
what
and
you
the
want.
reason I was asking that question is just because I understand that the tax rate increase would go in year 4
Okay.
or 5, but it would remain throughout that 20-year period to keep paying the bond debt,
Yes.
right? So, I mean, there would be, the taxpayer would be paying that amount every year going forward
Sure.
for the remainder of those 20
And we
years.
can run that. Also, during that 20-year time period, you're going to have debt falling off.
Okay.
We just happen to not have any debt coming off over the next couple of years. So,
Okay.
but yes, we can get that for you.
Well, thank you. And also, I know that a lot of times, in our voter education materials, which you mentioned, we only include kind of that snapshot, traditionally the year 4 impact. Are we, I guess this now I'm realizing maybe it's getting more into a Page question, but are we legally allowed to include the total cost over the 20-year life of the bond in the voter education material so that voters
We-
understand what they're signing up for?
We put in to our publications, now on the election notice, I am pretty sure, and I didn't look at it today, but I am pretty sure we just put the tax rate impact, not the total. They have specific language, and we will bring the language back on the 27th. So I don't know that, I don't, Lisa, do you know? I know we gotta notate some tax rate cent impact, but as far as a whole dollar amount,
Gotcha.
I'm gonna have to look at that.
Oh, and thank you for looking for
And
that. And I guess I
ask
was
bond
asking,
counsel.
beyond what's required by state law, are we allowed under state law to add in the additional information about the whole 20-year impact, or?
I'm gonna have
Oh,
to ask
okay.
bond counsel.
Awesome, and thank you so much for that great information, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I was also wondering, since this is, if we were to do the whole 700 million, this would be, obviously by far the biggest bond issuance, or the biggest bond package to go to the voters in Plano history. And we're in an environment right now where interest rates are still fairly high. If we issue debt at those higher interest rates, what's the earliest that we could call those bonds to maybe replace higher interest debt with what hopefully by then might be lower interest debt?
Is Denise in here?
Oh, sorry, that might be more of a
Yeah.
finance question. Sorry about that, Karen.
We'll find that out. I don't know how that's programmed in. We'll find that out for you.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Karen. I appreciate all of those answers. Sorry for the very many questions, and I really appreciate your thoroughness.
Hey, Karen, I just have a question about what was in the public comments today. So if, at this point, it looks like about, out of the $700 million, 50% of that's going to our streets.
That's
Or
correct.
with the orange cones on it, right? So
Yeah.
the other half really is just about facilities, getting repairs done, and so on and so forth. So the Cultural Art Commission is requesting some type of facility for, for entertaining arts. So if that was to be considered, where does it fit?
You would most likely put it as its own proposition.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Really, they did mention this, the arts, we really don't have a certain department for it. Actually, my department, Karen Davis, the budget department does the commission. Yeah, I would consider that probably its own separate proposition.
Okay, it would be kind of like what we did with the performing arts bond
Yes.
back in, what is it, 2019?
2001.
2001.
That's most likely what bond counsel, I'll be talking to bond counsel tomorrow, and I will double check with him, but that's probably what he's gonna say.
Okay, so it wouldn't fit into any other category.
Slimly Parks and Recreation, but let me talk to Bob,
Okay.
but I would probably think he's gonna say,
Yeah, we don't want you here.
oh,
So-
Mark, did you have anything to say on that one? Yeah,
No, I think you covered it, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
okay.
Councilman Williams.
Along the lines, thank you, Karen, for this. Along the lines of what Councilman Riccadelli was asking, I'm assuming these projections for the tax increases are based on current bond rates. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct. They're, yes, AAA.
And since we're not going to issue them all at once right up front,
That's right.
then assuming bond rates come down in the future, the projected tax increases would commensurately come down.
That is correct. That is correct. As interest rates go down, this will start coming down. I don't have it in front of me, but, oh, wait, maybe I do. Hold on. We had started it out at 5, knowing that the Fed most likely is going to start coming down, and I think we ended at 4 or 3.5. But yes, that's correct. That plays a part in this.
Okay, and this question may not be for you specifically, but our last bond package was, or this bond package is about twice what our last bond package was. Do we have a bead yet on what the proposed bond package 4 years hence might be?
No, I do not have that.
So Councilman, as you know, we did a staff-driven needs assessment for where we were. The number that came in this year was 1.6 billion at that point. Part of the discussion we had as a needs assessment is needs don't typically go away, so they just get projected out for year over year. So we anticipate that a lot of those needs will show up in the next bond referendum, maybe not all of them, but there's also the potential for other needs to show up. We will have our arts project come in. We also have Connect Plano. We have a number of community initiatives that we're aware that may be seeking funds, but at this point, we do not have a bead yet on what the totality of that will be.
Okay, but maybe the outstanding 900 million adjusted for inflation plus new stuff.
I think a lot of that is dependent upon where council is and where the community is as far as their tolerance for that at that time.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams, I do have or Councilmember Williams, we started out at 5%, because that's what we got this last time, went down to 4.5% the next year, 4.5%, and then down to 4%.
I'm going to start with you. Okay.
Thanks. Great information.
Good.
Very helpful to us as always. You guys make it hopefully easy for us, or easier to make decisions here. One point, following up on Councilman Williams and City Manager Israelson's comments, I would say one of the big reasons we have such a big number now, large number, street improvements. We're not a new city anymore. Majority of our streets are 30-plus years old. It gets very expensive to maintain those and also replace those, and we are going to be doing more replacements now, both thoroughfares as well as neighborhoods. So I understand that number there, and unfortunately, in 4 years, maybe it'll be a little bit better, because hopefully by then we'll be somewhat caught up. So I just want to say again, thanks for the information. I feel good that we have had such great input from our citizens to help us go through this. You guys put it all together, make it very easy. You do great presentations, to the members of the committee, advisory committee. I just want to say, how helpful, how important has that been to you and your staff, having citizens be involved, and we had a wide variety of expertise and experience levels, with our citizen committee. How helpful do you feel that was to have that expertise?
Oh, the last two bond referendum citizen advisory committees that we've had, they've been tremendous, absolutely tremendous, giving us feedback. Also, they've gone out to the community, let us know what people were thinking. What really helped this last time, and they were very appreciative, is taking them on the site visits. When you go and see some of these projects in person, they came back and said, now we know why you're asking for this. That they were very, very, very appreciative of those site visits.
Good. Yeah, I know I received very good feedback from the site visit, especially to our Fire and Rescue Training Center.
Yeah.
That was an excellent opportunity.
That was a definite,
Great. Well, that's all I had, Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
Oh, well, first, Karen, I'm very deeply appreciative of your efforts and staff's efforts on all of this, as well as that of the Bond Referendum Citizens Advisory Committee, as I affectionately call the BRCAC. Because this bond package is about twice as much as our last one, and because having spoken with some of the members of the BRCAC, I know that some of the projects put forth lacked the specificity to determine how critical is this really right now. But looking through the list of items, I'm mindful that, all of this is probably necessary and probably immediately necessary. And if I look at some of the items to consider delaying, we're talking about comparative rounding errors next to the whole $700 million package. All that said, this is a drum I've been beating for a while, and this is for the rest of council. More than half, maybe up to 60%, eyeballing the totals of what's in this bond package are for maintenance, largely roads. We're never going to not need to maintain our roads and repair them. But by putting maintenance expenses in a bond, which we're faced with the prospect of having to do, we're going to end up paying ballpark $20 million, maybe $25 million extra per year just in interest on all those bonds. One of the challenges, I mean, there are two columns of the tax rate. There's the M&O column, maintenance and operations, and the INS column, interest and sinking. That's our debt. All of this is going under the debt column for maintenance items, which realistically belong under the maintenance and operations column. Part of the challenge of moving everything to that column is it would necessitate an election by the voters to increase the tax rate. The debt portion of the tax rate isn't subject to the voter approval rate because people already voted on it via a bond referendum. What I would very much like to do over however long a period it requires is year over year, budget cycle after budget cycle, start shifting maintenance-oriented expenses, whether that's roads, facilities, water lines, sewer lines, shift them from the debt column over to the M&O column and balance it all out to a predictable spend so that we're not having peaks and valleys of maintenance. And whatever we end up saving on interest, it's not going to be the total 25 million because there are legit items in here that need to be capitalized over 20, 30 years, like police station. But it may save us $10+ million a year in interest as we shift all of that stuff to a maintenance need over time. And that's a whole new facility, $10 million in savings. Maybe that has to happen $2 million at a time, budget cycle after budget cycle. Maybe it takes 15, 20 years to accomplish so that in the future we no longer have to issue bonds just to repair stuff. We're just doing it as a matter of course.
Now, I will tell you this, I see where you're going. All these projects that are included in here will live 20 years. We do not issue unless it's going to be for the life of the bond. So, Mr. Isselson might want to comment on the switching over to the O&M.
Council, as you know, that's a council policy that we can adapt to. It just has to be the will of the council and be willing to, adjust that during budget cycles and potentially face those elements of elections of shifting over to the O&M side. We have had some of those discussions, and Councilman, that's not the first time you've made your comment, and understand that. I do think it is a long-term strategic discussion that would be something that council would have to be very intentional about for a number of councils in order to be able to achieve, but understand your perspective and analysis.
Okay. Councilmember Prince?
Thank you, and thank you for all your work into the great work of the bond committee. They make this a lot easier on us by all the hard work that they do, so I appreciate that.
They did an amazing job, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm thankful for their time and dedication on this. I will say, jumping to this much larger number of over 700,000, of the 700 million is a large, I think, pill to swallow. So I think my biggest concerns with it are there are a lot of projects in here that are land acquisition and design of new builds. And if if everybody comes back and says, yes, we have to do that for whatever reason, then maybe we do, but it feels like there would be more opportunities for us to better reuse buildings and land that we have and potentially save some costs here versus buying new land and repurposing facilities. So I would just want to have a better feeling that we're really having to build so many buildings from scratch. If we are going to have to place, I know originally this list, if I'm remembering correct, it did not include the complete rebuild of the police training center, right? And then we added that in.
Yes.
That's one that I would want to know if that is really necessary, or if that's something that could just,
Yeah. Now, I will tell y'all, the department heads are here if you have specific questions and want to call them up.
okay.
So
Um,
is Chief Drain here?
I know he spoke to us about that one,
No,
but.
he did, okay.
Yeah, there's some, I mean, that's a very large one in addition to just creating them their new centers. So to me, if there's some huge ones like that and we feel they have to be on there, I would want some of those larger ones broken out if we could.
So breaking out the police headquarters versus the training center is two separate propositions or two
Yeah.
separate considerations? How?
Yeah,
what do you mean
because
by
to
that?
me, from what I've heard, we've got to have the new, headquarters, right? That one's, it didn't feel like to me, and the other building is a lot, I want to say a lot younger, but it is, what, 15, 20 years younger than the other?
Yes, it started its cycle much later after, but
Yeah.
as you know, the headquarters had several additions. So it depends
Right.
on which edition you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's just things like that I want to make sure that we're, when we go to the voters, that we can confidently say, we have to rebuild this. We have to buy new land. We've looked at all of our options and we can't repurpose.
So that one is not actually buying new land. That is reusing
Right.
the existing land over there. The land that I think is getting kind of adjusted with that is actually the facilities maintenance building.
Yes.
And the facilities maintenance building is actually our former animal shelter. So it's before our current animal shelter, we had the animal shelter out there near Pecan Hollow. And it was an adaptive reuse for our facilities group to go out there. Having visited it with the condition of that building, it does not have appropriate storage. It does not have really appropriate offices. It was designed to be an animal shelter, not really a facilities building. So the issue became with the storage that's needed both for vehicles, for materials, things like that, as well as the location on the east side of Plano. The question became kind of co-locating that along with Fire Station 3 and some potential land that we're looking at acquiring hopefully in the May timeframe. It would be not quite as central as would be ideal, but it would present an opportunity to also create an area that would also help the driving pad and the rebuild of that particular police training center by taking that piece out. So that's what I understood from Chief Drain, but if we need additional details, we're happy to provide them.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So I don't really have any additional things to add. I just want to say that I believe if we were to look at the bond referendum, a part of it being the street improvement, if we were to take that out, it's actually pretty standard of what.
That is correct.
What our bond referendum normally is.
Yes.
The problem is, we are getting old, and we have to do the improvement. We can't just continue to see orange cones, what the mayor calls it, our new, what is it, our new? Our, what?
Well, it's our.
Our new Plano
it's our
flower.
official
We
flower.
cannot have that continuously. We need to be competitive with our neighboring cities, without naming names. And we cannot do that if we continue to nickel and dime ourselves without looking at the future. And we really need to look farther than this 5 years. We need to look 20 years down the road, where we have kids who are going to grow up and have families here. And we want Plano to be just like that, just like the way we had it when they are ready to have their families. So, I understand it's going to hurt, but it is necessary.
Councilmember Horn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Karen, thank you for the presentation. I was honored to be able to sit in on the BRCAC committees on several of their meetings. The citizens did provide insightful questions.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought Everything was well represented. The department chairs presented their cases. The tours were invaluable. So the insight that they got when they put these lists together, it was through knowledge and information and collaboration within themselves. A couple of observations. The biggest emails I get on my city are about the roads. You know, everybody tells you when you run for a city council, it's the tabletop conversation. Potholes, streets, it's all that. I'm looking at this, and our budget looks like we're going to be repairing anywhere between ballpark 8.5 to 10 miles per year. Is that correct? So that's pretty aggressive, and I can't wait till when they finish Legacy. Hint, hint. But that being said, I don't think there's anything within that entity that we're looking at those sections there, from the alley improvements to the intersection improvements to infrastructure. That's all. It's aging. As Mayor Pro Tem 2 says, we're getting old. I would like to refine that and say our city's getting old, but that's the case. Okay, so that's the biggest issue I see coming right now. So I am keenly sensitive to the arts and their desire for a visual arts center. I like to figure out where we might be able to place that. Where I see the biggest, one of the bigger costs here, or actually are two, is within facilities, particularly public safety. Do we need a new police headquarters? Absolutely. Do we need fire station number 14? Absolutely. Just look at the data.
Yeah.
Okay. Poor fire station number 3, it's so small it won't hold our modern apparatus. Simple as that. So we're underserving those local residents. Fire station 8, that's something that we can certainly have discussions on. But I'm almost like Councilwoman Prince. The fire training facility, the policeman training facility, you know, it was built 34 years ago. If we're looking at wanting something to have a 50-year life cycle, well, that building's still ready to live another 16 years. It should. And we should keep that in mind when we build our facilities. We should be looking for a 50-year life cycle. So when we start looking at areas where we can have potential cuts, and when we're trying to look at that overall bond number, those are areas that we need to have thoughtful consideration. My personal opinion, a $700 million bond that's going to be a tough nut to sell. It really is. It's almost like you go into the store and buying a jacket for $100. If it's $95, you'll buy it. If it's $100, you may walk away. I feel that's what we're going to be presenting to the citizens for a vote, but we'll see. So again, thank you for everything you've done, and I'm just passing it on.
Councilmember Rigadelli.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Karen and the staff, especially the budget staff, for your great work on this, but the department heads of every department, because I know that all of that rolls up into this. So I'm mindful of how very much work has gone into this. Thank you for that. And also the BRCAC, I like what Shelby calls it. I'm extremely grateful for their work and for y'all's work helping them get educated through this process. So thank you for that. I agree that we have to keep our facilities and our roads up to date. And, you know, one thing that has struck me throughout this process is that the vast majority of this, you know, almost 6/7 of it relates to public safety and roads. And when we do our citizen surveys, those are always the top 2 items, public safety and roads. I mean, that's what always comes out on top. So we have to get that done. You know, that being said, I do think we owe it to our voters to give them educated choices. So one of the really critical things, given what several council members have expressed, including, I mean, I'll just say several council members. I think I've heard it a number of times. This is an unprecedented ask. It's an unprecedented number. Yeah, it's also an unprecedented projected tax impact, and I think that makes voter education more critical than it has ever been, because this is you know, probably the most consequential bond election in Plano's history. And because of that, we really need to go out of our way to educate voters. I would like to see, to the greatest extent permitted by state law, and I think this is absolutely critical, that all of our voter education materials and whatever we're able to put on the ballot include the full cost of this. And by full cost, I mean the cost versus not issuing any bonds, not just the cost versus issuing $183 million of bonds. And, you know, as property valuation increases allow the current tax rate to absorb that and keeping the same tax rate, but the actual full cost of this. And then even more critically, the cost over the full 20-year life of the bond.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of voters don't really understand when they see that year 4 number, that is not the total cost to them of the bond package. Once that tax rate goes up or property values go up and the tax rate is unable to come down as those property values go up, however we pay for that bond debt, that remains for the life of the bond until it's paid off. And so if we look at that happening in year 4 of a 20-year bond, we're talking about another 16 years after that. And so I think it's just critically important, you know, if that's $224 in year 4, and we keep doing that every year for the remainder of those 20 years, we're probably talking more like $3,000 or $4,000, you know, for that average homeowner over the life of the bond, maybe even more, because property values will increase over those 20 years as that tax rate is unable to come down due to the bond debt. So I just think that's really critical. I also completely agree with Councilmember Prince that given the unprecedented size of this, we need to break out more items. This actually was in my planned comments, and I was very pleased to hear Councilmember Prince bring it up, but not surprised because I know how seriously you take debt. I've seen that through our almost 8 years now serving on the council together. I also think it's really important that we keep the projected tax impact at 4 years, because that's what we've always done. And so to keep it apples to apples, I think that's important. I also think that because we're going to go to the voters again in 2029, it's really a 4-year cycle. And so I think that honestly, more than it being the way we've always done it, is what makes it critical, I think, to give them the 4-year number. And then I also want to say that I agree with a lot of the comments that, for example, council members Williams, Prince, and Horn have made, you know, about some of the big ticket items, unprecedented size of this, and really the critical work that's been done by our Bond Review Citizen Advisory Committee. There were a number of things where a majority did not rate it a high priority. Some of them, only one rated it a high priority. Some, a quarter of them said don't even include it. I think that I would like to see us at our next meeting on the 27th go one by one through every item that did not get a majority as high priority. That's, you know, there were 8 members, so if 5 of them did not say high priority, if it was 4 or fewer, I'd like to see us go through those and say, is that something we have to do now? Because there was not a majority on the Bond Review Citizen Advisory Committee to say that that was a high priority to do that in this bond package. So I'd love to see us go one by one through those that didn't get the majority high priority rating of 3 by the Bond Review Citizen Advisory Committee at our next meeting. In particular, you know, I heard council members Prince and Horn mention taking a close look at whether the police training center has reached end of life. I think that's something that I'd love to learn more about, given the $50 million price tag. A few other impressions. We've got downtown right-of-way work for $6 million in here. That's eligible for funding by the TIF. And I think, you know, that's something I would like to see taken out of the bond package. I don't think we should be issuing citywide debt to pay for things where we're already essentially subsidizing what we're doing in downtown through the TIF. Then that would take it, you know, 1% of it out, right? Less than 1%, $6 million. But also miscellaneous, that was rated very low by the Bond Review Citizen Advisory Committee, only $810,000, but every penny helps. So I'd like to see that taken out. I mean, I don't think we can go to the voters and ask for miscellaneous money. You know, $8 million for screening walls. I'll tell you, I feel like screening walls are very important, but only one of the 8 members of the Bond Review Citizen Advisory Committee rated that a high priority. So I'd love to learn more about why that wasn't rated higher by the Bond Review Citizen Advisory Committee. And then I think there are other items, again, the ones that didn't get a majority of high ratings that we could go through at the next meeting. I also just want to hit debt per capita. Thank you, Karen, for including that in the presentation. The 2 highest I noticed on that list were Frisco and Richardson, which are cities at tail ends of kind of their lifespan. Frisco is still growing rapidly. Richardson is more mature than Plano is. And I think that's instructive because, you know, Frisco is probably saying, well, a higher debt per capita will get diffused as there are more capitas moving in to Frisco. You know, population growth is going to decrease that number. Richardson, that's a more troubling number, to be honest. And if we're not careful, I think, you know, as a maturing city, we could be headed that direction. So I think that's important for us to take notice of. Finally, I just want to speak to the arts. I really appreciate the presentations, and I absolutely support the arts in Plano. Similar to what I said about the downtown right-of-way, that's, you know, the arts are eligible, if they're done in downtown, like many are proposing, that's eligible for TIF funding. It's citywide, it's eligible for hotel occupancy tax funding. Given an already historic ask for debt, and the legal restrictions on the use of hotel occupancy tax, but that it can be used for the arts, whereas a lot of these other areas are ineligible. I would say, let's do that, but not as bond debt. Let's do that with TIF or HOT funds. And anyway, I think also if it is on there, just given that the voters had a prior vote on a performing arts center in 2001 and it did not pass, it would be important to break that out as a separate item so that voters could once again make a standalone choice on that. Anyway, I'd like to see us try to trim this back, recognizing that we absolutely have to take care of our facilities, have to keep our city, you know, fresh and good, have to take care of public safety and roads, but what are the options for a bond package size that might be slightly less onerous from a tax perspective for the residents?
I want to go back to something you said at the first. The propositions, they're going to see whatever dollar amount is going to be what's on the screen. They will not be seeing, that will have to be done in the public education forum. I want to say the election ordinance, where did the election ordinance go? We post them where?
They're posted on our board and published in the paper.
Okay. That's where the tax rate impact as far as this is concerned. When the voter goes to the voting box, they're going to see this. Nowhere on it does it have any kind of tax rate impact. Okay, just letting you know.
And that's determined by our bond council, right?
Yes, that is by the bond council. It's a state government deal, state law. Just letting you know.
Absolutely, and thank you.
All right.
Sorry, I was just going to say thank you so much for that information, Karen.
Okay.
I would suggest, if I might, that before our next meeting on the 27th, because I know we're getting close to decision time, that if a majority of the council is amenable to this, maybe we get an opinion from our bond council about where are we legally prohibited from including the full 20-year cost, and anywhere that we're allowed to do it, I would just love to see us do that
Yes,
so that
and
residents really understand.
I've got that written down.
Oh, fantastic.
I
Thank you.
will tell you this, I know what bond council's gonna say as far as the different propositions. They, just like he said it back in 21, usually it's a good idea to limit it to 6 or less.
Okay.
When you get past 6, the voters just, at the end, they're not even into it anymore. So
Okay.
I will tell you,
Okay.
Bob will say that,
Okay.
so.
Well, that's good to know.
I've
Thank you.
heard him say that many, many times.
Thank you for that feedback.
Karen, thank
Yes.
you so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate all the work.
Not a problem. I will let you know, Mark already knows this, I'm not gonna be able to be at the next meeting, but Jason Gregorosh, who's my second in command on the bond referendum and has sat through all the BRCAC meetings, will be here. We will have everything answered. I will try to call in from Zoom. Anyway, just to let y'all know. But Bob, I will talk to you tomorrow, so you're already gonna be getting, the questions you asked. I will send those out ahead of the meeting. Okay, any other questions for me?
I don't have any questions. I do want to thank you for that, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I appreciate all the comments from the council, and I know this is a large bond proposition. I think one of the things that we talk about every day is staying relevant and keeping our roads up to date. And that's what we're going to continue to try to do going forward. When we talk about roads, we talk about sidewalks, we talk about residential streets, and we talk about perimeter walls, because guess what? The developers are gone. So now it's the onus is on the city of Plano. And so these are things that we're responsible for taking care of if we want that city of excellence that everybody talks about. The public safety facilities are a no-brainer for me. I've lived here longer than those facilities, but very small amount. They've been around long time, especially the police station, and they deserve, for what they give us back in safety and security, they deserve a proper headquarters that they can utilize and really even become better serving with their abilities for a better facility. I don't have a problem if we want to trim this down to a certain degree. I'm okay with that and okay to talk about it. But when we stop talking about taking care of our city, like some other cities that are close to us, and start kicking the can down the road, that's when we fall apart. And you talk about the cost of this bond, Anthony. If we don't take care of our city, not only will the cost of the bond for 20 years, we need to find out what the cost of losing corporate companies, residences that move out, that completely become in disarray. That's what we have to fight against. And as we talk about, we're in a maintenance mode here in Plano, and we have to take care of a city that had a huge growth period and now is asking for us to repair it so that it'll be relevant for the next 30 or 40 years. I understand it is a lot of money, and I couldn't agree more. But I think as Councilmember Horn said, we hear more about the need for roads and thankful for our public safety more than anywhere. And Mark can tell you, as we travel around the world and see these companies that are now in Plano, that was their number one priority, was safety and security. And Plano is probably one of the best at it. So yes, it'll be a sacrifice. I think we can find some areas that we can lower the cost, but at the same time, I think we have a real obligation to our citizens, our corporate citizens, our city in total, to make sure that we take care of it for the next 20 to 30 years by continuing our obligation to take care of the city of Plano. So I think it's something that we can look at possible, sorry Casey, I'll get to you in a second. I think it's possible we can look at some areas that we can cut, but again, know that whatever we cut, it'll be 20 to 30% more expensive in 4 years.
That's true.
And we have to take that under consideration because as we just heard, the bond issue is not going to get any smaller. Hopefully, over the next few 4 to 8 years, we can catch up on the road issue, but there'll always be needs in a city this size.
And just so y'all know, at the next meeting, we just drafted this based on the dollar amounts. You will need to decide what priority level you want it to go in. Like, in hearing the BRCAC talk and y'all talk, you may want Proposition A to be public safety. That's all I'm gonna leave you with.
Okay.
So you will need to decide that at the next meeting.
Casey?
Yeah, I was just gonna follow up by saying, I agree with Councilmember Riccadelli that going through some of those items that were lower priority would probably be helpful. I don't think anybody on here today is saying there's certain things we have to X off the list today, but I do think I at least would feel better in making a decision if we had a little bit more of a deep dive into some of those ones that were rated low, or had a conversation about, you know, some of those, the big ticket item like the training facility, and if that's something that really needs to happen this year.
So council, I might request that in order to expedite the next meeting and make sure we make the most efficient use of time, if you'll go through the ranking list from the BRCAC, and actually send me a list of those projects that you would like additional detail. We'll try to get that to you in writing ahead of time, and then be prepared to present it to you, but we can try to get some of that information to you ahead of time to make the most efficient use of time, and make sure that as we get to it, we're providing as thorough a response as possible. So we'll have the staff members there, but if you'll send any project that you want, y'all have carte blanche, send any project you want to me. We'll compile that, we'll get that out to staff, and we'll get you some responses, and then we'll be ready, prepared to present the next council meeting.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Karen. Rick?
Mr. Mayor, just real quick, from a procedural perspective, are we going to have a working group before we have our next actually public meeting to discuss what each of us have as far as evaluation from that, looking at that list? Just to help educate me, what is going to be the next step here? Are we going to have this discussion in a public forum?
So Councilman, part of the challenge on a working group is, as you know, is going to be, you know, the open meetings and those sorts of things. So it becomes more of an individual exercise along those lines. I think part of the goal of having it at the next meeting is to have that in that open forum. So if you have other information that you need, other elements, just I would ask that you send that in, but I'm not aware of any process that we've had in the past of having council have a subcommittee look at this in any.
Yeah, if y'all can get us that, normally it's like this, normally at the end of the meeting. Like Mark said, if y'all can go ahead and go through those lists and tell us what you want more specific detail or you want discussion about, because some of these, like y'all already mentioned, are kind of a no-brainer, okay? But the ones at the bottom, you want more information, we can have them here to discuss it. We can have stuff given to y'all ahead of time, and so you can make the final that evening. So, and once you do that, what happens is then all that's turned into an ordinance that you will be approving February 10th.
Well, but Paige just told me February 10th is the drop dead date to call an election.
Yes,
So
that is correct. That is the
we-
drop dead
We
date,
have to
yes.
kind of get our act together.
There you go. Yeah.
So hopefully we can still do that on the 27th.
Yes.
And finalize it. Is that okay? All right.
Okay.
Thanks. Moving on to the next item.
Comments of public interest. This portion of the meeting is to allow up to 3 minutes per speaker with 30 total minutes on items of interest or concern and not on items that are on the current agenda. The council may not discuss these items, but may respond with factual or policy information. The council may choose to place the item on a future agenda. And we do have several speakers this evening. The first one is Michelle Zimmett, and I will move her in from Zoom. Ms. Simmet, if you'll go ahead and turn on your camera and microphone. Go ahead.
Okay, speaking of safety, I would like to propose that we ban horse carriage rides in Plano, San Antonio, Denton, Chicago, Salt Lake City, Key West, Palm Beach, and many other cities have banned it for safety reasons. The Dallas City Council is in the process of trying to ban it as well. They had a 10-5 proposal, and their committee is working on it right now. I don't know if y'all are aware, but in the month of December, in Deerfield, there are about 10 carriage rides from the North Star Carriage Ride Company, and they have anywhere between 4 and 15 passengers on the one horse carriage ride. So one horse is carrying anywhere from 4 to 15 people. It's a bit antiquated, it's inhumane, it's unsafe. Their horses, some of them are lame, limping. They're working horses and they work in crazy temperatures. It's unsafe for humans and horses in the cars. They're breathing the fumes and they're dodging traffic. So there are thousands of cars going through Deerfield in the month of December, and the horses are dodging the cars, which is a safety issue, you know, not just for the horses, but the cars and humans walking on foot as well. I feel like we need to be their voice. In 2023, there were 20,000 horses were sent from the United States for slaughter, mostly to Mexico, and most carriage horses end up in slaughter pens due to the cost of upkeep. So if they're not working, they're not, making money, therefore they're disposed of. I would really appreciate y'all's consideration. I know that we are an animal advocate city, the city of Plano, and I would love your support in banning this practice in Deerfield.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you very much.
Lisa, I didn't ask you. Go ahead, Lisa. You can cut that fumble. I didn't ask you how many speakers we had.
We have 11, so about the appropriate for 3 minutes each.
Good. Well, I'd like to take that down to a minute and a half.
Okay.
So you'll start with the next speaker.
Okay. Mary Collier.
Hi, my name is Mary Collier. I'm a member of the Dallas Area Transit Alliance. I am aware of Plano's efforts to take money away from the DART system and their efforts to take it to the state legislature. Plano needs to consider how involved they want the state in their local government. Today it's DART, but tomorrow it could be your school system. It could be TxDOT trying to bulldoze small businesses and houses to make bigger highways. If you invite the state into your house, it's probably not going to turn out very well for everybody involved. So you seriously need to consider how much you want the state involved in your business. I know DART is very interested in expanding service in Plano. I understand the concerns over how much tax money is going into DART and how much service we get. The way Plano is addressing the issues with DART is not okay. It's not cooperating well with them, and it will hurt your citizens. The most vulnerable in your community depend on the rail and the buses, and you need to make sure that infrastructure stays in place.
30 seconds.
Thank you very much.
Nathaniel Adam. We can't hear you, Mr. Adam.
You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah?
Thank you. All right, hello Plano City Council. I'm a regular rider of the bus routes that we have in Plano. I use them to get groceries, visit the doctor, and go out with friends. So I'm deeply concerned that due to Plano's demands for a citywide golden zone, these fixed bus routes would have to be cut, and that Plano is okay with this. Well, I'm here to tell you that on behalf of all my fellow bus riders, many of whom may not even know that this is happening due to zero effort to communicate this to those who are affected by this change, we are not okay with this, and that it will be a reduction in service quality, not an improvement. The proposal is based on a complete misunderstanding of how transit works. We know that fixed route services are more efficient than on-demand services like GoLink because they group together riders going to the same place so that they can be efficiently picked up by the same driver. So I urge the City Council to please reconsider their request for citywide GoLink service, as it
30
will
seconds.
be an inefficient use of taxpayer money, especially if the fixed route services are cut as well. It is something that is nice to have, but it's not worth cutting all of the existing bus routes. Thank you.
The next speaker will be David Sordo. Mr. Sordo, please turn on your camera.
You have to turn your camera on for us to hear.
Give me one.
Mr. Sordo, when I move you to a panelist so you can speak, please don't decline. I'm going to try it again. Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hello. I'm joining this meeting because of some recent comments made to cut some bus routes and potential future extensions of the rail line. I think that's ridiculous for the service of GoLink. While it being a valuable service, it should not be extended or expanded at the disposal of other systems and other routes that we already have. Plano is the city of excellence. We should be excellent everywhere.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Ravi Subramaniam.
Hi, that's me. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, esteemed city council members, and city executives. My name is Ravi. I've been a Plano resident for 5 years and lived in Dallas-Fort Worth for most of my life. I work in business technology, and I'm a graduate of the University of Texas System. First and foremost, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the work that you do here, and I'm proud to live in a city that so often lives up to its promise as a city of excellence. It's that pride in our city that compels me to speak today about the ongoing situation with Dallas Area Rapid Transit, or DART. Plano is a phenomenal city with thriving businesses and first-class public works. Our firefighters and police officers are the best in the country, and our parks are second to none.
30
Plano
seconds.
residents are safe, are educated, and support some of the most successful businesses in the world. We have the capacity to be a leader in transit, but a vital component of leadership is our service to and uplifting of the community around us. So I have time for 3 minutes, so I'll make this brief. In a word, I am disappointed, and I implore you to preserve our role as a pillar of the DART community and maintain our financial commitment to bus and rail services. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Warren Pena. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Warren Pena. I live at 1400 Chakota Drive here in Plano. I am also with the Dallas Area Transit Alliance. I work in downtown Dallas. Is my camera on? I'm sorry. Can y'all see me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I commute downtown every day, 5 days a week. The DART system is very important to me. So as you can imagine, I've been kind of frustrated to see these attempts to claw back 25% of Plano's contribution to DART for us to spin up our own transit service. I like the idea of us getting circulators up through the legacy region. I think that's a great plan for us to pursue, but I think this should be part of within the DART system itself, not us spinning up our own custom thing. And the other thing I wanted to point out is I keep seeing this number, 65 million, that was identified in the Ernst & Young report as the gap between what we're contributing and what we're getting back. I think it's important to note, though, that that doesn't account for the Silver Line, and that's going to be a huge value add to Plano. So I wish,
30
like
seconds.
my friend earlier said with the Texas State Legislature, I wish we could stop pursuing that. I feel like nothing good's going to come from that, and we could really just buy into the system we have and keep improving it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, can you see my camera?
No.
No? I don't see any way to turn it on.
Well, unfortunately, Texas law is that you have to be on camera on Zoom.
Was that Dan?
Yes.
Okay. Try again, Dan.
There you are.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Good evening, dear and esteemed City Council and Mayor. My name is Dan Mustafa, and I am a resident of Plano. So Paul Wageman, the Plano City Council representative on the DART board, has proposed drastic changes to DART's budget allocation. He proposes to transfer money spent on buses and trains to GoLink. These transfers would worsen one of the most important aspects, which is already suffering, of any fixed transit route: frequency. All DART services could use more funding, but taking funding from the absolute core and spine of DFW public transit, the trains and buses, will make most trips on DART, including GoLink trips to train or bus stations, significantly slower due to longer headways. Buses and trains also make up for the vast majority of ridership, while GoLink, an important but relatively inefficient and low-capacity system, carries a small fraction of ridership. DART reported in November 2024 that 52.4% of all DART
30
ridership
seconds.
comes from buses. Close behind is combined rail systems at 41.2%, leaving just 6.6% of ridership to GoLink, paratransit, and the Dallas streetcar. These numbers should make clear just how much more important buses and trains are to riders when compared to other systems, such as GoLink. Dear City Council and Mayor, I hope you can see why taking from buses and trains and giving to GoLink will lead to catastrophe for DART, therefore hurting its users and also drivers by pushing more cars into our already congested roads and highways. There are few things we need more than shorter headways and few things that could hurt them more than longer headways. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
The next speaker is Saya Clark. If you could turn on your camera and microphone. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Saya Clark. I'm at 1510 Municipal Avenue. I'm actually right across the street. First, I just want to thank you so much for staying late and burning the midnight oil for us here in Plano. I really love this city. I've been living here for 4 years. I'm a Texas resident, born and raised. And I'm just here to speak on the DART, echoing basically everything that people have said before me. I just want to express that, you know, I don't have a car. I use the DART rail system and the buses almost every day to get by, to get to my job, to visit my friends and family. It's very, very important to me that these lines are, you know, supported and taken care of. And I'm very heartened to see the council and the mayor speak tonight so passionately about keeping Plano in line with modern cities and to be as up-to-date and progressive as we possibly can. But I'm disheartened to know that that we're also looking to defund public transit when I think the rest of the world has moved on to much greater and, you know, progressive policies of supporting public transit when we know that supporting cars and more cars, big trucks are killing our planet. So please, I just beg you, please, tonight, as someone who loves this city and loves this state, please do not defund our public transit system. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Di.
The next speaker will be Tyler Wright. Go ahead.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. My name is Tyler Wright. I'm actually a resident in Addison, Texas, but I commute often to Legacy West for my job. And I'm also a member of Dallas Area Transit Alliance. And I wanted to add a bit of a personal touch to my experience dealing with GoLink and bus routing in Plano. I can take the 239 from my neighborhood and reach the Northwest Plano parking ride pretty simply. And from there, it's a GoLink transfer. This is pretty workable because, you know, it's still only just a couple miles from the transit center to the office. And I think that works fine. But I've also taken DCTA's GoZone as well as VIA in Arlington, which have more regional microtransit services similar to what you guys are trying to get promoted at the cost of buses and trains. I've had consistent wait times over 20 minutes. I could go on, but I don't have the time. I would say before you push this any further, maybe try to go from Centerport Station to the Cowboy Stadium on a Saturday and see how good regional GoLink would work for y'all. What's especially concerning is that we also know data that,
seconds.
Thank you. Your data rep, Mr. Wageman, has been a lobbyist for Uber for a long time, and there's DART has usually relied on Uber to subcontract many of the rides with GoLink. So that connection is extremely fishy to us. Can't say I'm a big fan of that, and I don't support cutting bus and rail service or any of the other things other than maybe the legacy circulator, which would be actually really awesome.
Appreciate it, Tyler. Thank you.
The next speaker is Connor Hula.
He wrote a novel.
Hello?
Go
Can you hear
ahead.
me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Connor, and I also wanted to speak about the proposed service changes. First, I want to talk about the legacy circulator idea. I've been wanting that for a while, so I want to thank everyone involved with the city who's working towards that. I think it's a good idea. Next, I want to talk about citywide GoLink. So first, I want to say I like GoLink. It's a good service, but I have concerns about capacity. So my brother lives in Arlington, and while I've been using GoLink to get around Plano, he's been using their service Via to get around Arlington, and it doesn't work as well. It has really long wait times, and it's extremely unpredictable. But GoLink is much, much more efficient. It's a far superior service to what they have in Arlington. And I think one reason for that is because you have the bus. My bus route, I take the 241, goes from Plano and Richardson. A citywide GoLink can't replace that because the citywide
30
GoLink takes
seconds.
you from Plano to Plano, whereas a lot of the bus routes get you from Plano to a different city. And I looked at the ridership stats. The 241 gets 2,000 riders per day, and I have a hard time imagine how many Uber drivers you'd need to carry 2,000 people in a day. I can see how a bus can handle it pretty well, though the 241 can be crowded sometimes. But doing that on GoLink, I think, would be very difficult. So please don't cut the bus service to expand GoLink. Expand GoLink. I encourage it, and I like that
Time.
idea. But
Thank
I don't
you.
think it should come at the cost. Yeah.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Hyacinth Zabo.
Not many, less than 5.
Hyacinth, if you're there, please turn on your camera and microphone. Go ahead.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, staff, and council members. My name is Hyacinth Sabo. I'm a resident of Plano, and I'm here with the other data members to discuss Plano's recent demands of DART. I'm a student at the University of Texas at Arlington. Arlington has the same sort of citywide on-demand service that City Council has requested at DART. However, my experiences with Arlington's on-demand service have convinced me that this would be a bad value proposition for Plano. Arlington's on-demand service has long wait times, upwards of 30 minutes, poor availability during rush hours, and long or inconsistent journey times. Once, for example, I had several additional people added to my vehicle to get picked up and dropped off before I arrived at my destination, adding an unexpected 15 minutes or so to my journey home. This sort of on-demand service is less useful and pleasant than a bus with a fixed route and a schedule you can depend on, and is
30
not a good
seconds.
replacement for bus service. While I see the value in expanding GoLink coverage in Plano, it cannot come at the expense of existing bus and rail service. Additionally, one of our representatives on the DART Board of Directors, Paul Wageman, is a paid lobbyist for Uber. As mentioned, DART has a contract for Uber to provide GoLink services when DART's own resources are unable to handle demand, which creates a clear and obvious conflict of interest for Wageman during discussion of GoLink services. Despite this, Wageman did not excuse himself from, but instead actively participated in discussions at Region. Very well. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Marissa Miller. Ms. Miller, if you'll turn on your microphone and camera.
All right, can y'all see me?
Yes, go ahead.
Awesome. All right, thank y'all. My name is Marissa, and I'm a resident of Plano. I've lived in and around Plano for most of my life. I regularly use DART to navigate around Plano, as well as to commute to other parts of the Metroplex for work and to see family and friends. So Plano cutting its funding to DART would be absolutely detrimental to my life as a Plano resident, and as such, I'm in full support of full funding for DART. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Davis, if you will turn your camera on and ready to speak, it's Davis Boykin, and he'll be the last speaker.
That's correct. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So my name is Davis. I live in Plano. I just want to kind of reiterate what's been said. I'm not affiliated, but I'm kind of just speaking my mind. So microtransit services like GoLink are able to maintain limited success before they eventually reach an impasse caused by their own growth. Regarding DART Rep Paul Wageman's recent proposals, there's an obvious subversion of DART's rail and bus system. He has said in his own words, and I quote, "We're going to have to reduce bus and probably headways on rail." I think this is unacceptable. Again, the proposed increases to microtransit emphasize GoLink, which is contracted with Uber, as everyone has already said. Wageman is a lobbyist with Uber through his lobbying firm, Winstead PC. Obviously, this is completely unacceptable as well. So many people in DFW, including myself, have spent years relying on DART to get around whenever obtaining a personal vehicle is unfeasible.
30 seconds.
It can easily accommodate low-income families and individuals, disabled citizens. While there are plenty of problems with DART, it's obvious that private enterprise is not the answer. In fact, there are plenty of arguments to be made on DART accessibility through land use laws, car-centric infrastructure, etc. The lack of walkability combined with inconsistent punctuality of DART services, particularly rail, makes it incredibly inconvenient. The purpose of public transit is to accommodate the people's needs.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more? Well, interesting last hour here. Plano's been working to obtain a value of transit analysis since 2019. This did not just happen recently. DART has resisted producing this study for 2 legislative sessions. We just asked for the analysis. DART finally commissioned Ernst & Young to produce a study in 2024, and the Ernst & Young report highlighted a significant subsidy with $65 million of Plano's $109 million contributions subsidizing the system. Plano hopes to resolve this inequity locally. Plano remains committed to providing transportation options to our residents and visitors. However, DART must take meaningful steps to correct this inequity. Thank you. There being no further business, we're adjourned.
So if you have a passion for solving cases and serving justice, Plano PD is where you should be.
Thanks for watching this episode. Stay tuned. We'll have plenty more to come. For now, I'm Stacey Rogers. This is Labor of Love with the City of Plano.